This is Murdock's Music Minute, the hot minute that usually turns into 20 minutes, devoted to an album, a discography ranking, or anything that's got to do with pop, rock, or indie from any decade. This time from my indie corner. And if you've read the title for this video, it's not about Tales of Us, but Tales of Goldfrapp. I hope you've brought a warm and cozy coat with you, because whatever the season in your part of the world, today's album is something for wet autumn nights, or even better, cold and misty winter evenings. Why am I doing this with 20 degrees Celsius outside? If you want to do something artistically serious, do it in black and white. This is the 6th studio album by cinematic trip-hop turned electropop duo Goldfrapp. And if you're not familiar with them, you should rectify that now. I mean, after you've watched this video.
Alison Goldfrapp studied fine art and media and had been involved in various trip-hop projects as guest performer in the mid-90s until she met Will Gregory in 1999. Gregory had been a composer with a background in classical music and touring artist with acts like Tears for Fears, Peter Gabriel and Portishead. Impressed with material he had heard from Alison Goldfrapp, he had reached out to her and the two decided to form their own musical project, Goldfrapp. Their debut album, Felt Mountain, released in 2000, is frequently singled out for Alison's breathy vocals set to cinematic soundscapes, presenting a kind of dreamy, retro-futuristic development of trip-hop. Based on that sound and also the visual image Goldfrapp had created for themselves with the debut, their second release came as a bit of a surprise. Black Cherry came out in 2003 and saw Goldfrapp morphed into an electronic or alternative dance act with glam and new wave influences, as well as a knack for kinky, slightly dark sexual imagery. The album charted quite successfully and included some classic singles. This was followed in 2005 by the smoother dance pop of Supernature, which, together with the singles taken from it, was a big commercial success in the UK. And just when people thought the duo had finally settled for a very elegant dance pop sound with touches of disco and new wave, their fourth album, Seventh Tree, came along all toned down folk-inspired psych pop, again with a complete visual image, this time turning away from the more erotic disco glamour of the two albums before. This was just but a stopover, because the Goldfrapp rocket soon aimed again for the 80s disco ball on 2010's Head First, seemingly drawing inspiration from ABBA, Madonna and 80s Van Halen. Again, the album was relatively successful, especially in the UK. Despite their change of styles, the constant factor always is Alison Goldfrapp's soft but very charismatic soprano voice. A feature that should become the center of a more intimate atmosphere on Goldfrapp's next album.
And this album is called Tales of Us. As can already be seen from the artwork and the sleeve design, this is a rather low-key, quite artsy and stylish affair. The 10 song titles mostly consist of simple single names, like a collection of memories or old photographs or short stories about different persons. This pressing, by the way, simply says produced in 2013 in the EU. Like every Goldfrapp release, There was a clear-cut visual and aesthetic concept for the album. Most of the songs were accompanied by sophisticated black and white video clips, and there was even a short film for the whole album shot by Lisa Gunning, a filmmaker with whom Alison Goldfrapp had a deep love relationship at the time. The whole feel and atmosphere of images and music is monochrome, melancholic, and a bit film noir style. The music, accordingly, is slow and toned down and notably more cerebral than the duo's dance-oriented records. What strikes most, probably, is the instrumentation. For an act that is usually considered electronic, there are lots of acoustic instruments and a full string section. The tunes are sparsely arranged, putting the focus on Alison Goldfrapp's very soft vocals. And at the same time, the tracks are often lush and sound very rich in a mysterious way. This certainly harkens back to the sound, the cinematic sound of Goldfrapp's debut album. A good example already is the opening track, Joe. A simple, very haunting and repetitive phrase played by double bass and keyboards provides the rhythmic pulse of this track. There are no drums on the entire song. Alison sings a simplistic, very haunting melody, while in the background more and more strings enter the arrangement. Joe is a dreamy, yet somewhat eerie song about love, love lost, and also with allusions to death and even murder. Listeners never had heard Goldfrapp that toned down, and Joe specifies the musical direction of this album. It's a delightful recording.
Just swept out into the water, ripples of black. Run, you better run for your life.
Next is the ballad about Annabelle, carried by a plain acoustic guitar and strings over which Alison Goldfrapp sings with her gently whispering voice. It is a song about intersexuality, gender identity, and a boy who feels like a girl, or a girl trapped in the body of a boy dreaming of being Annabelle. Drew, the next song, is in a similar style. Its lyrics, again, performed in a hushed vocal style that is typical of Goldfrapp, remain unclear, but seem to allude to the memories of a possibly in some way illegitimate love affair. It features a sweeping string interlude, once more underlining the cinematic leanings of Goldfrapp's music.
Falling lemon, you burn and crash in dirty snow. All to us, and I might as well melt into Sunday.
As the fourth song, we have, as I would pronounce it in German, Ulla, but could also be Allah or Yulla. Another intimate track, but with a haunting, catchy vocal melody. It is filled with images from nature, the sea, and animals, apparently inspired by a trip to Iceland. It sounds a bit brighter and more optimistic than the songs before, and is one of many highlights on Tales of Us.
Float on glass and mirror high, where the universe above, try to find a line connect, where the world makes no sense at feel.
The first half of the album is reached with Alvar, or maybe the Scandinavian pronunciation is more like Alvar. All one-word titles, but a real pronunciation challenge for me from Goldfrapp. The song starts with something that sounds like a dulcimer, maybe a little bit like a Scandinavian folk song. Overall, it features more guitars, but very sustained, and a bit of percussion in the background. This mythical, nocturnal, very wintry song also was inspired by Alison Goldfrapp's visit to Iceland. Side 2 opens with Thea. This one was a single, the other ones were Annabelle and Drew. It is the album's most rhythmic track, based on horse hooves, I think, revealing Goldfrapp's dance music side. Again, we get a very night-timey vibe on this song, and a dark love story about longing and desire, but also despair and a feeling of danger and loss. Simone returns to the mysterious and melancholic ballad style of Annabelle and Drew. It's very cinematic again, and is maybe the most hushed vocal performance of Alison on the whole album. That reminds me that to this day I remain a big supporter of the idea that Goldfrapp one day should provide the title song to a James Bond movie. They are just not mainstream and hip enough to be taken into consideration for that, I'm afraid. Before I digress too much, let's continue with Stranger. This is a gorgeous, dreamy track, like something left over from Felt Mountain, but played with an acoustic guitar and a string section. The melody lets you revel while Alison Goldfrapp sings about a fleeting romantic encounter in her truly ethereal way, again alluding to a homo or even transsexual constellation. Born a mystery, you are the in-between, boy or girl. Musically, there is a bit of the grandeur of 60s orchestral pop involved, which is also maybe why I had to think about classic James Bond soundtracks. This is one of the album's absolute standouts for me. And then it's back to names as the song titles again, with Laurel. A very tranquil piano and strings ballad, very pensive and melancholic. This track is the musical equivalent of walking in slow motion through the winter fog or floating underwater. Again, the music has a very nocturnal, cinematic feel, with lyrics about looking for love, but possibly also prostitution. The album ends with Clay, a song that uses more major chords and thus sounds more hopeful, like the first rays of light after spending a sad and long night in contemplation and complete seclusion. Clay's lyrics, according to interviews with Alison Goldfrapp, are actually based on a true love letter that she came across. It is the only song that is written from a clearly male perspective. The lyrics basically use parts of a letter written from one soldier to another soldier. They met in World War II and became lovers. One of them, however, died in battle, so this love letter was knowingly written to a dead person. Very moving, very intimate, set to a lush and very bright melody.
We were only to learn, only to love and breathe again.
And thus, Tales of Us finishes. It is a quite moody but fascinating and compelling album. This became one of Goldfrapp's most critically acclaimed releases. It reached number 4 in the UK and several top 10s across Europe. Definitely Goldfrapp's artistically most sophisticated and unified release. If you don't mind slow textured music, give this one a listen. I wholeheartedly recommend this, even though it wouldn't even make my Goldfrapp top 3. That's how strong their discography actually is. We haven't heard any new music from Goldfrapp in quite a while, and I really hope that we will see at least 1 or 2 more albums from them in the near future. And if not, we will always have, among others, this collection of short stories, or rather close-up snapshots of people and their dreams and desires. Or, to sum up, so this album comes close to a walk in a dark and wintry wood in black and white with... Where the hell am I? See you again, maybe, in another video.